Following a brazen $1.2 million daylight heist of crown jewels from the Louvre in October 2025, investigations revealed shocking details about the museum's cybersecurity. It was reported that the password to access a server for the museum's video surveillance system was simply Louvre. This wasn't a new issue. France's National Cyber Security Agency had reportedly flagged this trivial password as a major vulnerability in an audit as early as 2014. The audits also noted other serious security flaws, such as running critical systems on outdated software like Windows 2000 and XP, if anybody remembers those. I certainly do. The revelation that one of the world's most prestigious cultural institutes holding priceless artifacts was protected by such a basic password led to widespread disbelief and ridicule. Mark, what's the problem here?
I don't really know where to start here. Well, I mean, you can see what's happened here clearly. I mean, they've the Louvre have purchased the security system back in 2014. Somebody has set up a temporary password, and to quote one of my colleagues this morning, temporary fixes are always permanent fixes. So nobody ever goes back and revisits things that's up. So that's the first problem. So that's interesting. So that's, in a way, that's kind of, and we know a lot about Internet of Things devices coming with standard passwords and other problems with that. But I think then the most shocking thing, I suppose, is that it was flagged by the security services in an audit in 2014, and yet it was still there in 2025. So you're wondering what's gone on there. And I think one of the other interesting things is if people get very frightened about changing systems they don't understand. And I suspect it's been one of those situations where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't touch it, and it's working, and therefore nobody really knows how to actually affect those changes, and it's a sort of endemic problem. But yeah,
I think we've seen a lot of memes out since then. The Louvre hosts the great Mona Lisa. There's a lot of speculation about her sideways, ironic look. Her enigmatic smile is apparently a look of pure judgment and side-eye directed at the museum's IT department. And finally, we know what the expression on her face is about. She was going to predict that they would do this terrible thing. Emily, is it is it reasonable to ask people to have to remember complex passwords to access critical services?
I think the whole episode reminds us that whatever business you're in the business of cybersecurity, whether you like it or not. And I can just imagine the huge culture clash from this. If you are working in the Louvre Museum in Paris, you've reached the top of your field in your respective expertise. And how much patience and interest do you think people who can, date some incredibly priceless jewellery, $100 million worth of jewellery, this incredibly beautiful stuff, the Mona Lisa, priceless cultural artifacts, that's their world. And some nerd from the IT department giving them a complex password. I can just imagine there's quite a clash of cultures there. And it does also, remind one, we often talk about cybersecurity in healthcare. You've got these huge systems where many people need to be able to access the same thing at the same time. Now, I'm not convinced that the security cameras in the Louvre are a case of that. I don't think many people in the organisation would need to access those. So I don't understand why it was such an easy password. I would say I don't think there's any link that's been alleged between the cybersecurity failings that are alleged and the actual heist itself. That seems to have been a different thing. The cameras were not compromised, but clearly it would be very, very easy to do. And as Mark says, the fact that it was pointed out in an audit 10 years ago and apparently not remediated doesn't sound brilliant, but it's just how these expert communities. We've done studies had colleagues who've done studies of things like cybersecurity and civil nuclear physicists, brainiest people in the world. How much patience do they have for nerds from cybersecurity lecturing them about passwords? Zero. They think they're stupid, and they're actually worried about much greater public risks, like the risk of it all going wrong in a nuclear environment. So it's a difficult one to get right.
Mark, you're responsible for our overall security, and congratulations.
Yes.
You just personally, with Katie Mars in our company, achieved 27001, I remembered it, ISO certification. And, on the one hand, you've got easy to remember, easy to share passwords, and let's talk about sharing passwords in a minute. But then there's the sort of what is a proper password, and there is actually software that helps you generate those. A recent password that I generated using the software that is actually a healthy and good password from a mechanical point of view, and I've simplified this just to hide it, is #G capital T 57 capital H small h T L capital J capital O J G capital Y star capital D.
What happens if you lose access to your password manager? Okay, let's repeat that back.
Yeah, but if I'm logging into my computer every morning, is it reasonable?
Yeah, I think there's a sort of there is a pragmatic line to be drawn for passwords that you need to remember versus passwords that you don't. And I think that's the bottom line, is that we have a password manager which is well integrated into our systems for passwords you don't need to remember because you only occasionally access them with a service. I think inevitably you need to have a memorable password for logging into your workstation every morning if that's a requirement for you. And I think for that, we have rules about that. Even it can be whole words. It should contain at least one symbol, and it should contain a number, but it can be of a sufficient length that it wouldn't then be easy to guess. And I mean, the other side of it is that most systems, frankly, will lock you out after a number of attempts of an invalid password. So you're making it sufficiently complex that it wouldn't be easily cracked.
How would Louvre do?
Oh, well, I think there is, because they also like to help you remember your password. You need some, I forgot my password clue. And they were saying in the Louvre Museum, the guards were able to remember by looking at their uniform. But Emily, just quickly, I mean, passwords, where is this going? I know you look after a vulnerable person who finds the whole of the internet, and even just literally looking at the phone very confusing.
It's one of my Tech Room 101s is digital exclusion, particularly of the elderly, because and I think Alice was saying the other day, in her previous work as a speech and language therapist, there are these brilliant programs and things that can help people with hugely profound communication things. And then you go and visit the house and ask everyone where the iPad is, and they're like, "Oh, it's gathering dust in the cupboard because none of us can remember the password."
Yeah, right.
And you're actually it's for your own good, but the reality is that many people are actually locked out of technology because they don't have the capability of remembering passwords. They can't remember the password for their password manager. And it feels like we can have a conversation with an AI about the most incredibly complex things, but we still haven't actually come up with a replacement for passwords.
A last quick word. My daughter worked in the NHS. She was instructed by the IT department. The password is whatever the password is.
Yeah.
Share that with everyone. If you ever change it, you'll be sacked.
Yeah.
Would that have got through ISO 27001?
Absolutely not. No. I mean, you've got one of the key principles that we work to is generally not password sharing. People generally need to have individual passwords wherever possible. So yeah, it's the whole principle of that is anathema.